Hello and welcome to the inside of my motorhome, and today I've got a story for any of you who are van curious. And if there's any one thing you do, you read the story. I say read, not listen. Stop listening to me, click on the link there below and you will go to a story which comes from the magazine Insider. You've probably heard of Business Insider. Well, Insider is their cultural and lifestyle part, and this is all about Frank and what happened to him on a weekend, and it was awful, as you will see. So stop listening to me and read the article. Alternatively, you can listen to me because I'm going to summarise what happened to him. So it's January 2021 and Frank Olito rents a campervan for the weekend. Now, I'm going to tell you the punchline up front, if you hadn't already guessed it. It's this. That's it. Frank's out. He's not doing any more vanlifing. There's a word I made up. In fact, he's not going to do any more vanning. There's another word I just made up. So two words I made up and I hardly got started. Indeed, this is a big pity, because Frank says he had been fantasizing about leaving his job, getting rid of his apartment and embarking on a everlasting trip to nowhere in a campervan. That sort of thing that I actually do, or started 10 years ago this month. And so Frank's been watching, though, too many of these videos, largely produced in the United States. When you've got people parking next to the sea, they open the back doors of the van. They've got these fantastic views of picturesque landscapes and drones sweeping across the beach. And the van's driving alongside the shoreline, not getting stuck on the sand. I don't know anybody even take their van anywhere near the beach. That's just my opinion. I got stuck on near the beach in the car, never mind anything else. Anyway, so what Frank did, unlike many people who just sort of talk about it and think about it, he actually went and got himself a van. He did the right thing. He tried it out for a weekend. And that's what anybody should do. First thing you do, you read his article. The second thing, if that hasn't put you off, then you rent something for the weekend. So what he did, he rented it, Mercedes-Benz Sprinter from a company called Outdoorsy. Now Frank's in the United States. He's in New York. And this van cost him $1,770 for 3 days. Now that to me, for 3 days in January, sounds rather expensive. I mean, 3 days in August, then I think that's probably about right. But I don't know what the prices are in the United States, or particularly in New York State, so I can't say one way or the other. So the van turns up. Frank's really impressed by it. Well, other than the wet room, which is small, not a surprise really, because if you've got a van, which is, okay, it's the largest Mercedes, so it'd be, and this was a super large one, which he said it was 24 feet. Okay, you don't see many of them around, but let's say it's a 7-meter version, so that's what, 22 feet. And but it's only what's it, didn't say the air, but let's say it's 204 centimeters wide at its widest. So anyway, so he sees the composting toilet in there, hasn't got a clue how it works, and that's fair enough. I mean, it's without the instructions, it does look a bit hard to do. And indeed, when I got my first van, there was instructions. Here's a note page. I write my notes on, but it wasn't like that. It was like 3 times more than that, and so it was a real thick book. Now he's only going away for the weekend. I mean, he doesn't want to study the entire Oxford English Dictionary. So I can understand that. I mean, when you buy a van for the first time, you find something you don't understand and it works. Such as I put water in is about one of the first things you do, and you learn how to do that. So anyway, if you're going away for the weekend, maybe the person you rented it from should have had given him done these things for him. Of course, the person he rented it from did take him through the what you do, this, that, and the other, which I don't know, maybe it was just too complex. But anyway, Frank didn't take it all on board. But he sees the man. He says, "Oh, that's too big." I mean, it's one of the first things you think of. Yeah, it's too big. It's too small on the inside, but it's too big on the outside. So he got one of his friends, some lady friend of his, and they headed off to Philadelphia. Now, she was doing the driving because she was used to driving this vehicle. Because obviously, if you're sort of used to knocking around in New York, then maybe it's a rather large thing to do. And the first thing they did was they spent the night in a place called Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is a restaurant and a gift shop chain. It's got 660 outlets throughout the United States. It's got a southern theme to it, and they allow for overnight RV parking. And if you speak to anybody in the United States, or even look at any of these videos on YouTube, you'll see that they're spending all their time in Walmart parking lots. Which, you know, I mean, it's fair enough for a night, but I don't think I'd want to actually go there and sort of spend my entire life in the Walmart parking lot. But anyway, that's me. Maybe you want, that's the sort of thing you dream of. I think I'll go to Walmart and live in a Walmart car park, and just for fun, for my holidays, I'll then go to Cracker Barrel and spend it there. Anyway, as far as Frank was concerned, and this lady, his lady friend, whereas now they went there, they had something to eat, and yeah, I'd give it a go as well, once I suppose. And now the parking lot was empty. I presume in the summer probably quite full, but I suppose it makes sense in January 2021. You know how many people are going to go out in their van. Now, what they discovered, and was reinforced, where the van's big when it needs to be parked. For example, trying to park the thing in New York, suddenly it becomes very small when you're trying to move around. They kept on hitting each other, and then they had to sort of give their instructions to each other. So they said, right now I'm going to walk down from where the bed is to where the table is, or now I'm going to put something on the cooker, or now I'm going into the toilet, or whatever. So they sort of get used to it. And I've actually found this as well when I'm with somebody, and sort of go away for a longer period of time. Now, for example, it's often happened that I've been with some woman, and then, you know, we're going out for days in the van, then suddenly we go out for a longer thing, then suddenly, you know, the whole thing changes. It's that you are getting each other's way, and I think, you know, but you learn your way around, and after a while, then you stop bumping into people. But yeah, certainly at the beginning, they actually had it. Now, this happened. Now, what happens next is where the problems really begin to start, because they decided they were going to watch some program, I think it was The Bachelor, on the computer, but then the battery begins to die, and so what happens? He plugs it in. Well, it doesn't work. Clearly it doesn't. It's not going to work. The reason it's not working because it's not on hookup. And now in my van, I've actually done it so that some of the plugs do work because they're connected via the inverter, but very few people have got that. So he should have obviously put the plug into the inverter directly if he knew where it was. If there was one, I don't know. Was he even told about the inverter? He could have been, but he whatever. It didn't work. Now, new vans are often sold out inverters. This one was a rental van, so it was older, so I was expected to have personally to be there. Anyway, but there was now a more serious problem happened, and that was that the heating wasn't working, and they didn't know how to turn it on. Now, in this case, there clearly was a problem. He rang up the person to ask, and the person who he'd spent more than $1,000 renting it for 3 days, and he asked how to fix the heat. Well, I'll tell you the punchline again once more. The van didn't, the heating never came on, not once. So anyway, he has a freezing night in a van in January. Then they head off to an RV park in a place called Clarksboro, which is in New Jersey. So they decided to spend the day in Philadelphia, and they considered the van going into the city. But now you've got the next problem, because whereas it's tiny when you're trying to live in it, and if they'd already tried driving it out of New York and realised how big it was, and so they said, well, we'll just leave it at the RV park. So then you start questioning, why does he have to leave his van in an RV park, which is supposed to give him the freedom to travel where he wants? Then he's got to take a taxi to get into town. Good point, isn't it, really? So there's not much freedom there. So anyway, so he spends the day in Philly, and he's lucky enough to meet a friend, and this friend's staying in a hotel, so he goes up in the hotel to use the toilet there. So so that's actually put that dreadful task off from using the toilet in the motorhome, so or the camper van. So presumably during the night, when he'd had to urinate, he'd gone into the car park. I don't know what he did. I wasn't there. I'm just making that point. And so, right. So they get back to the van. He must have had a bit of trepidation. He doesn't say this, but he must have done. And so not only is there no electricity, but the generator is under the bed, and he cannot find the generator to turn it on. Now, here in Europe, I mean, I think the majority of people don't have generators. In the United States, it is quite normal. There was a generator actually in this van when I bought it, but I took it out. That's a different story. I shouldn't have done, because I had next to nothing on the clock, and it was worth £3,500. Anyway. So in the morning, he called the owner again, and the owner's advice is to turn on the gas cooker. Now, in my videos, I've commented various times on the instructions not to use cookers for heating. Open the windows is what they tell you to do. Well, obviously, whilst cooking, that is. And now, I do appreciate, of course, that clearly there is a risk of oxygen depletion leaving the gas on. It's quite common to hear stories of people who go into the mountains and they turn the gas on to keep themselves in some mountain hut, keep themselves warm, and they end up dying. And so I appreciate that everybody who's been in van life has done this. They have put the cooker on to get a blast of heat. Yes, I know that. And I also know you shouldn't do it, right? So, and if you're desperate though, I mean, you need a bit of heat, but you can't do it when you go to sleep. And this is a problem. You can't even do it when you lie down. You start relaxing because you might go to sleep. Anyway, so he gets this blast of heat from the cooker. So the final day and the last night, and more successful, and Frank gives a description of his use of the bathroom. Read the article to find out, because I don't want to spoil the whole thing for you. Now, this is clearly a disappointing weekend for Frank, because he spent well over $1,000 and he had a horrible time. And he learnt that van life's not what it's all cracked up to be. And this actually is, I think, relatively true, because all these problems can happen. I mean, I've lost my electricity for reasons I didn't understand in the winter, for example. I mean, it took me 3 or 4 days, and I worked out what the problem was. Admittedly, it was a bit more complex than just turning a switch on, but you can have all these other problems. I think most of us here, with experienced people, have run out of water, for example, at one stage or the other, or something like that. These things happen, and then Frank realizes that this is a tiny house, but the tiny house which isn't built with the quality of a real house. And this is something I think many people don't consider, particularly when you look at vehicles which are cheap to buy. And if it's cheap to buy, then there's going to be a problem with it somewhere. So the thing is this: Frank did the right thing. I mean, he'd seen these videos with the beach and the drone and the girl in the bikini with the breasts almost falling out of it, and he thought, hey, that seems just the sort of thing for me. He did the right thing. He got a van for 3 days. One thing he did wrong, of course, was he got it in January, not in July, which might have taught him. And obviously, you know, urban camping in New York in winter is not really the sort of Philadelphia around, or is not really the thing to be doing. Now, you may be thinking that's a bit hypocritical of me. I'm in the middle of Poland right now, and it's January. Yes, it is, but you can see how I'm dressed and I'm inside, so my heating's working. But if he's really into the van life scene, he probably should have been heading off to Florida in, like, say, in October or something, when it starts to get a little bit cold, and come back in April. But, you know, maybe that wasn't possible. But anyway, the $1,000 he spent, I'm going to argue, was spent very wisely, because it's told him the truth. And I hear stories about people who actually buy vans, and then they find out they don't like it, and they've got these problems. So right. So the thing to do is this: you read the articles, number one. Two, you take it out. You get something for a weekend. Then you get something for a week. Then you get something for 2 weeks. Then you rent for a month. And if you still like it, then you buy a second-hand van, and then you buy a van. That is the new one. That is the order of things. See, I'm still in a used van. I haven't progressed to buying a new van yet, and I've taken out new vans, and I found things in them that didn't work, and so, you know, these things happen. In fact, of the new vans I've taken out, 2/3 I've had to go back for something when I'm inside it. 2/3 or even 3/4 even, let's say. So they're facts. Right, your homework is to write down in the comments below what you think Frank did wrong. And if you disagree with anything that I've said in this little talk, then you write it down as well. So you may think, yeah, you're completely wrong. I mean, Frank probably really wanted to go and get himself frozen. I'm going to send this to Frank as well. I don't think he's going to respond. But if he does, then maybe you can throw a few more insights into this story. Thanks for listening. All the best.